Welcome back YouTube, I have Ahmed again from In-Depth Tech Reviews, and this is my second video about the Camera PX app. And if you don't know what's Camera PX, this is a Gcam mod that enables a lot of features that are not available in the stock camera app. My previous video was comparing the stock camera app against the Camera PX on the Pixel 4, and I got a lot of requests to do the same comparison on older Pixel models, so I have here my Pixel 3 XL to do the same exact comparison. So let's check how each camera app will perform, but before getting started, let's make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified every time I post a new video. So let's jump in. Before starting the comparison, let me show you the settings I used on the Camera PX app. The Non-ZSL frame count is set to 45, maximum zoom level is set to 50x, 4K time-lapse and super res zoom always on are activated. Force sub-immersion method is turned off because it doesn't work that well on older Pixel models. Portrait zoom is set to 1.5x. Both the DCI P3 color space and the Portrait HDR Plus Enhanced are turned on. Automatic maximum exposure time is set to 60 seconds, and the Show Astro buttons is turned on to be able to force the Astro mode. So now let's start with the comparison, and the first thing I will compare are the morning shots. Let's start with the landscapes, and here's the first image. Both apps look exactly the same in terms of exposure and white balance. When it comes to colors, the stock Gcam image is slightly more saturated, so it's not a big deal. However, when you zoom in, you will see that the Camera PX image is sharper and more detailed, which is a win for the Camera PX, thanks to the always-on super res zoom and the higher ZSL frame count. Let's move on to the next image, and here everything is almost identical. However, the Camera PX image once more looks sharper and more detailed when zoomed in. Let's check the HDR, and here are few images showing the same exact results coming out of both apps. So in this category, the Camera PX is the winner due to its sharper and more detailed images. For anything else, they are pretty much the same. Next, the portraits. And because the Camera PX allows you to enable the HDR Plus Enhanced for portraits, I took the portrait shots with the sun behind me to push both apps to their limits. In this image, the stock camera app produced the more saturated colors and warmer white balance, and you can see this if you look at my sweater. So let's zoom in to check the subject isolation, and I can see the same results coming out of both apps. However, there is a very important difference when I zoom in further. As you see, the details coming out of the Camera PX is a lot better and the image is a lot less noisy. And keep in mind that I'm not using beauty mode in any of them. Overall, I see the difference in details is major, so I will give the win to the Camera PX in this image. Let's check another portrait with more sunlight to make it more challenging. And it's obvious that the Camera PX handled the sunlight a lot better than the stock camera app, keeping the subject well exposed as well as the background. And when you zoom in, the subject isolation is exactly the same once more. And when zooming in even further, as expected, you will see much better details and sharpness coming out of the Camera PX app. Let's move on to the selfie portraits, and here's the first image taken with the wide-angle selfie, and look at the difference in HDR. The Camera PX crushed the stock camera app in HDR, however the stock camera app has more saturated colors, but when you look at the details and sharpness, the Camera PX once more is better in selfies. So for portraits, the win goes to the Camera PX app, hands down. Now let's move on to the macros, and here is the first image. I couldn't spot any difference in anything other than the colors. The Camera PX colors are more vibrant, and that's because of the P3 color space, unlike the stock camera app that uses the sRGB. And in the second image, I couldn't spot any difference even in colors. However, I will give the win to the Camera PX because of the better color space, so it can handle more colors. And finally, the zoom. I will only use 8x on both apps because I had an issue in the Camera PX app. When I zoom in beyond the 8x, the viewfinder goes totally black and the image taken is unusable. So here is the first 8x zoomed image, and as you see, the colors of the Camera PX are more vibrant if you look at the grass. When it comes to exposure, the Camera PX is slightly more exposed, and when I zoom in, I see the stock camera app image is sharper and more detailed. which I didn't expect as the Camera PX was always sharper in the previous images. In this image, the differences are very minimal. However, once more, the stock camera app produced a less noisy and sharper image, so I will give the win to the stock camera app when it comes to the zoom. So overall, when it comes to the morning shots, the Camera PX was better in landscapes, portraits, and macros, while the stock camera app was better only in the zoom. So I'm done with the morning comparison. Let's start with the night shots. Here is the first image, and I forced the Astro mode in the Camera PX and used the night sight in the stock camera app. And both images look very similar in terms of colors, white balance, and exposure without digging deeper. However, when I zoom in, I see a very slight difference in white balance, and the Camera PX image looks less noisy and more detailed, which is expected due to the extra seconds taken by the Astro mode. So overall, both images look very good with a slight edge that goes to the Camera PX. So let's check the next image. Again, this image taken under the same conditions, and once more they look very similar, and when zooming in again, you will see more details and less noise coming out from the Camera PX app. One more image, but this time I used the night sight in both apps, and in this case there is no difference. Even in the sharpness and details, they are exactly the same. So when it comes to landscapes, the Camera PX is the winner due to the fact that you can force the Astro mode and improve your night shots. Next, the portraits, and here is the first image. There is a big difference in colors. The Camera PX image is a lot more saturated compared to the stock Gcam, and that's due to the P3 color space used by the Camera PX that gives more vivid colors. So if you prefer less vibrant colors, you can turn it off under settings. When it comes to edge detection, they are identical, and when zoomed in, as expected, the Camera PX produces less noise and sharper image. So again, the win goes to the Camera PX in this image. In this image again, the same scenario repeats itself with more saturated colors, less noise, and sharper image coming out of the Camera PX, and the subject isolation is identical in both images. Let's check the selfie portraits, and in this image they are identical in terms of colors, exposure, and white balance. However, when I zoom in, there is a big difference in the amount of details and noise. The Camera PX is clearly the winner in this image, showing more details and less noise. And of course, the same applies to the wide-angle selfies. So once more, the Camera PX is the winner in night portraits. Next, the macros, and there is no difference between the two as I used night sight in both apps because I couldn't hold the phone for a long time while taking these shots. So when it comes to macros at night, it's a draw between the two apps. Now let's move on to the zoom before comparing the Astro mode. And here is the first image, and I forced once more the Astro mode in the Camera PX and used night sight in the stock camera app with 8x zoom in both apps. And I didn't notice any difference that can allow me to pick one over the other. They are pretty much the same in everything. And finally, the Astro mode using a tripod. Keep in mind that I increased the exposure time in the Camera PX app to 60 seconds, which increased the overall time taken to capture the image to reach up to 7.5 minutes, which is insane. So let's check the first image, and the first thing you will notice is the exposure. The Camera PX image is brighter, but the major difference is in the details coming out of the Camera PX app. And as you see, it's a day and night difference, so the extra exposure time making a big difference in details. However, that comes with the cost of more than 7 minutes for the shot to be taken. Let's check another image with less clouds to be able to see the stars. And in this image, at the first glance, both look identical. However, when I zoom in, I see more stars in this area coming out of the Camera PX app. So to sum up, the Camera PX takes more time, about 3 minutes more than the stock camera app. However, it gives you more details and stars. Finally, the light painting feature of the Camera PX app, which will allow you to take stunning images with the long exposure effect. So here are a couple of images taken with the light painting feature turned on. So let's sum up the whole comparison. Most of the time, the Camera PX produces better images than the stock camera app, either in morning or at night. So I definitely recommend installing it on your Pixel device, and the download link will be in the description below. So that's pretty much it for today. I hope you like my video, and if you do, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe for more videos. Thank you for watching.